What happened when walking became illegal in your house? My father believed each person had a lifetime limit of steps, so he rationed mine to 100 per day and made me use a wheelchair the rest. Ever since my mom died when I was 8, my dad became convinced that walking too much had killed her. She was only 45 and worked as a mail carrier, walking miles every day. When the heart attack took her, Dad, a former sports medicine doctor, snapped and created this twisted system where steps equaled death. He gave me a pedometer every morning programmed with exactly 100 steps, and once it hit 0, I had to stop moving immediately. My older brother Bennett got 500 steps a day because he was the firstborn son. My little sister Kelsey only got 50, and by the time she turned 12, she'd stopped walking completely. She just stayed in bed, saving all her steps in a notebook where she'd write down the places she'd go someday. Dad used maybe 1,000 steps daily, explaining that adults had already established their mobility patterns, so they could afford more. My chemistry teacher, Mrs. Jones, kept giving me worried looks when I'd wheel myself to the lab bench, but Dad's medical excuse note kept everyone from interfering. Every morning at breakfast, Dad would ceremoniously reset our pedometers from his laptop. He kept a spreadsheet where he'd track every step we took. Use more than your daily allowance, and tomorrow's ration got cut by 20. Go over by 50 steps, and you'd spend the next day strapped to your bed. Get caught walking after your pedometer hit 0, and you went to the stillness room, a converted bedroom where you'd be restrained for days with bedpans and feeding tubes. We could borrow from future days at a 3-to-1 ratio for emergencies, but Dad had to approve it first. Everything else required wheelchairs, and Dad had installed cameras to monitor that we weren't secretly walking. Crawling was forbidden because he called it cheating. School was a nightmare. Kids thought I was faking paralysis. I met Cameron in chemistry class when I was 16, and he was the first person who didn't seem bothered by my wheelchair. He'd push me between classes, but Dad would review the pedometer data later at home, making comments about wasteful teenage wandering. Things started unraveling when I turned 17. Dad announced that since I was becoming an adult, my step allowance would drop to 75. That same week, I had my college campus tour scheduled. Dad generously gave me a step loan of 1,000 steps, but after years of rationing, I couldn't walk normally. I kept stumbling, counting steps in my head, panicking about running out. The tour guide looked at me like I was having a breakdown. I finally collapsed into my wheelchair and whispered, "Sorry, no more steps today," and left. The real crisis came when Kelsey had a seizure. She'd been saving her steps for years and couldn't even get to us for help. I found her convulsing on her bedroom floor and had to choose between running for help or wheeling slowly to Dad. I used my entire week's worth of steps sprinting to call 911. Dad was furious about the waste even while Kelsey was in the ambulance. While cleaning the attic, I found Mom's diary. She'd been planning to divorce Dad before she died. The last entry said, "He's stealing our children's mobility to feed his delusion. I'll walk every step I have left to show them what freedom looks like." I realized she knew her heart was failing and wanted us to see her move as much as possible. Cameron started helping me practice walking in the woods behind school. He'd support me as I relearned how to run, but I discovered Dad had hidden GPS trackers in my shoes. He knew everything. That night, he showed me his lifetime step calculations, proving I'd already used half my allotted lifetime steps. At this rate, I'd be mobility dead by 35. He locked me in the stillness room for a week. The paralysis was suffocating, broken only by my own breathing and the beep of the feeding pump. When I emerged, Dad presented a contract, promised to use a wheelchair forever in exchange for my college fund, refuse and leave with nothing. That's when Kelsey exploded. Years of saved steps came pouring out as she ran. She sprinted in circles around the house while Dad tried to tackle her, yelling about locomotive suicide. The neighbors heard Dad's screams and called for help. Mrs. Jones arrived with police, having documented everything for months. I had to choose, stay still or move. I stood up from my wheelchair and started walking. I told them everything while Dad begged me to stop, convinced I was killing myself with each step. He tried to negotiate, denying everything, then lunged at me attempting to break my legs. They took Dad for psychiatric evaluation. My siblings and I got separated into different foster homes. Some days, though, I can't walk at all.